What's going on, everybody? This is Brian Mazika, the Fight Guys, also a Forbes contributor, and I want to talk about the top fights in every weight class, right? So I'm going down from the smallest to the largest weight classes. Now, I understand, we all understand how boxing works, and many of these fights probably won't get made or cannot get made because of the different promotional politics and network issues and all of those different types of things. But as a pure boxing fan, I want to talk about the fights that if fans had their choice to see fights that they have not seen before, right? What would be the matchup in each weight class that you would most want to see? So I'm going to start off with what they call minimum weight. And a lot of boxing fans are probably like, what in the world are we talking about? So I'm kind of crazy, so I kind of look at just about any type of boxing, right? And if you look at the minimum weight classes, you'll see that there's two Thai fighters who are really considered the most elite. It is Sheafan Moonsri and Thurman Niamtrong. Both of them are undefeated. Moonsri is 53 and 0. He's 33 years old, 53 and 0. Niamtrong is 19 and 0. He's only 28. Now, if you look at the competition, Niamtrong has actually faced the better competition, but Moonsri was kind of chasing this. He wanted to eclipse Floyd Mayweather's, undefeated start for his career to 50 and 0, and he did that by going 53 and 0. But if you look at some of the fighters he's fought and just look at their records and their pedigree, you kind of see that it may not be at the top level. But Niamchong is fighting good fighters, so it'd be nice if we could see those two guys meet up. Well, it probably depends on whether Moonsri wants to put that undefeated record on the line against a guy who has a good shot at beating him. So that would be an interesting fight in the minimum weight division. Let's go to light flyweight. As obviously as we get a little heavier, the guys will get a little bit more well known for you. But similar to the minimum weight, there's one particular country that's kind of sitting right there at the top. And then for light flyweight it's Japan. Kenshiro and Hiroto Kayaguchi are the two top rated undefeated fighters in the division. Kenshiro's 15 and 0, 27 years old. Kayaguchi is 13 and 0, 25 years old. Kenshiro is the far more respected of the fighters. Only has 8 knockouts. This guy, if you look at him, you think he's like 17 or something, or maybe 20, but he's not. He's 27. His nickname is the Amazing Boy, and he actually has a fight already scheduled for July 12th against Jonathan Takaning, and that is in Osaka, Japan. So he's not scheduled to take on the guy we want him to fight, basically, which is Hiroto Kayaguchi. But that's the fight to me to make at light flyweight. But as you can see, it's not that easy making the most desirable fights, even at the smaller weight classes. So moving up to flyweight, the this one's a little, it's debatable, right? Debatable. The best fight is somewhat debatable. I don't think there's any question that Kosei Tanaka is probably the best fighter in the division, right? He is 13 and 0, also from Japan, only 24 years old, and he's got a little bit more pop than you see in most of the smaller weight classes. He only had 7 knockouts, 13 and 0. But he had a little streak of two consecutive knockouts, and then he won by a majority decision and unanimous decision in his last fight. He fights Jonathan Gonzalez in August. That's his next fight, and the Jonathan Gonzalez fight is, he's a top 20 guy, decent record. But the guy I think really that Tanaka should be fighting is Charlie Edwards. He's from the UK. He's 26 and 0. He is 15 and 1. He was knocked out in his only loss, but that was a little bit ago. Like I said, he's 26 years old. That loss came all the way back in 2016 against John Rio Casimero, and it happened actually. He lost his he lost the was going for the IBF World Flyweight title in that fight, and was knocked out. So it was clearly a tough loss, but he has rebounded since then, won 7 consecutive fights. Most recently in March, he beat Angel Moreno to retain the WBC World Flyweight title. So he's got a legitimate world title. It would be great to see him taking on Tanaka. That's the fight I think to make at flyweight. Now let's move on up to Superfly. That is now we're starting to get to some people that I think most boxing fans know. Juan Francisco Estrada has established himself as not just the best super flyweight in the world, but you gotta pretty much say that he is among the top 10 fighters, period. And I'm gonna go over a pound for pound list on the video in a few. But we're talking about the fights of the best fights to make in each weight class. And Juan Francisco Estrada, 39-3, 29 years old, is coming off a victory over Sri Sakatsuar Rungvisai, who was the man who owns two victories over Chocolatito, and among other fights that he's won he's also actually the fight with Estrada was his second fight with Estrada. He'd already beaten Estrada by majority decision, but this last fight between Sri Sakat and Estrada, Estrada won by unanimous decision, and far more clear of a victory than what Rungvisai had over him originally. So I think it really establishes Estrada as the man in the division. And since we've already seen him fight Rungvisai twice, we could say the best fight for them is a third fight, which would be the trilogy. But I'm talking about fights that we haven't seen. And you can't ignore KHALID YAFAI, undefeated, 26-0, 30 years old, from the UK. He just recently took down Gilberto Jimenez. This was just on June 29th. It was on the same card as the Demetrius Andrade Machi Selecki fight. And, YAFAI looked great. And he, like I said, he maintains the undefeated record, WBA World Super Flyweight title, Super Flyweight champion. Seeing him line it up with Estrada is an interesting fight. I think that's clearly, in my opinion, the best super flyweight fight to make. Let's go to bantamweight. Right now, I think bantamweight has a banger. I don't even have to hesitate to talk about the best fight at bantamweight. It is easily Luis Neri against Naoya Inoue. Inoue is and I am not, this is no pun intended, Inoue is a monster. And yes, that is his nickname. But bantamweight, 18-0, 16 knockouts. This dude punches a hole in people. He is a devastating puncher. I think he is pound for pound one of the 2 to 3 best punchers in boxing. This kid can crack. But Neri is a heck of a fighter as well. I don't know that Neri is up to this challenge. I'm just going to tell you. He takes on Juan Carlos Payano in his next fight. That's on July 20th. We'll see. We'll see what happens. It's actually on the Thurman Pacquiao card. Now, mind you, Inoue already knocked Payano out. One shot. Bam. So, we'll see. It's going to be a measuring stick for sure for Neri. Maybe it's sets up the fight with Inoue. Now, the one thing to remember, Neri's only 24 and Inoue's only 26. These guys could be right here at the top of this division for a long time, but that is the fight to have at bantamweight. Now, look at super bantamweight. The best fight at super bantamweight, I think, is Emmanuel Navarrete, who beat Isaac Dogboe twice in a row, which I thought was a very big accomplishment because I really liked what I'd seen from Dogboe, but he took him down. And Ray Vargas, I think, is the guy for Emmanuel Navarrete. It is a all-Mexican affair. Vargas is 33-0, 22 knockouts. He is the WBC Super Bantamweight champion. He's already got a fight in July, in a couple weeks, actually, against Tomoki Kameda. And so he'll be defending his title there. But Navarrete really impressed me in the rematch. And he's 27-1, does have the one loss, but that one loss came really early in his career, all the way back in 2012. Hasn't lost since. As I mentioned, the back-to-back victories over Dogboe. He does need to beat someone else because we got to make sure this kid doesn't just have Dogboe's number, which sometimes we see that. But like I say, he's 27-1 with 23 knockouts. He can pop. So I'd like to see him and Ray Vargas in there. You might get some arguments from people wanting to see Danny Roman, even Guillermo Rigondeaux in there. I don't know, but right now for me, I'd say Navarrete against Vargas. All right, let's take a look at featherweight. At featherweight, this one to me is easy. Yes, Oscar Valdez is a good fighter. Yes, Josh Warrington is a good fighter. Kid Galahad is a good fighter. There's some good fighters in this division, and some up and coming guys like Shakur Stevenson. But for me, and this is probably the most makeable fight that I've mentioned thus far, Leo Santa Cruz and Gary Russell Jr. It's easy. It's an easy pick for me. I've been wanting to see this fight for 2 to 3 years. The problem is Gary Russell Jr. only fights about once a year anyway, which is the biggest criticism of him. I mean, Gary Russell Jr. has the fastest hands I've seen of anybody since Meldrick Taylor. He is a phenomenal boxer. And I really don't have any doubt in my mind that he would pick Leo Santa Cruz apart. Uh, but the fight has to happen. But it is the fight to have at featherweight, in my opinion. We can move on to super featherweight. And at super featherweight, there's a lot of good fights here. There are a lot of good fights. There's some people here that may be a little bit overrated. We have to see these guys fight each other before we know for sure. I don't know what's up with Andrew Cancio. I don't know if he just simply has Alberto Machado's number. He's beaten him twice in a row, decisively both times. So I don't know. But for me, I got to go with Miguel Burkelt and Javante Davis. It's a great fight. And if you want to see Javante truly pushed and challenged, this is the type of fight that he should be in. I think Javante knocks Burkelt out. I really do. But would he get an opportunity to? Burkelt's with Top Rank on ESPN. Javante's with Al Heyman, and he's on Showtime. So we don't know if that'll ever happen. If I'm Showtime, I'm wanting to make that fight because it even further establishes Javante as a star, and I think that's a fight he'll win. But that is, to me, the fight for super featherweight. Let's slide on up to lightweight. And to me, the fight to make it lightweight, this one is tough because there are some good fighters at lightweight. You got Teofimo Lopez. You got Robert Easter Jr., who's already taken some knocks. Emmanuel Tago. I mean, because Ghana is represented strong at lightweight. Because you also have Richard Comey, who's the IBF champion. A lot of good fighters here. I believe Lee Selby's going up and out of this weight class, so he doesn't really matter. But the cream of the crop, for sure, at the top of this whole thing is Vasyl Lomachenko. Lomachenko is arguably the best fighter in the world. He's right there in your top three, I would say. I don't know if Mikey Garcia can continue to make lightweight, but if he can, that's the fight. Vasyl Lomachenko against Mikey Garcia. I'm really close to saying that it's Vasyl Lomachenko against Teofimo Lopez, but I'm not sure that Teofimo Lopez beats Mikey Garcia. So because I'm still not sure about that, I would go with Lomachenko against Garcia. I think it's an excellent fight. If Garcia can still be Garcia, the Garcia we saw before he allowed himself to get beaten to a pulp by Errol Spence in a weight class way too big for him, before that happened, I was more confident that maybe Garcia could really give Lomachenko a good fight. Now I'm not so sure, but I am sure that that's still the best fight to have at lightweight. All right, let's move up to super lightweight, where we got, to me, maybe the most underrated fighter in the sport, and that is Regis Prograis. I don't know if there's a better fighter in the sport who gets less attention. He is the man. I mean, this dude is a beast. Now, they're the top four fighters in this division: Prograis, Josh Taylor, Maurice Hooker, and Jose Ramirez. Those are all really, really good fighters. Now, Hooker and Ramirez are already set to fight. So I could take the easiest way to do this is to say basically the winner of that fight should fight Prograis. But you also got to look at Josh Taylor, who is a heck of a fighter. He's 15-0, 12 knockouts. He is the IBF champion. He has, he's defeated Brian Mar. Here's the thing I like about him, right? If you look at his record and you look at the people that he's beaten back-to-back undefeated fighters. The fighter he beat before that, Victor Postol, only had one loss. He's fought good fighters and he's beaten these guys. And if you look at his finishing rate, he's finished 5 of the last 7 guys that he's fought. So he's doing work. So I really hesitate to look over Josh Taylor when I'm talking, setting this up. And I believe right now that Josh Taylor he's competing in the Super Series anyway, so he's probably lined up to take on Regis Prograis. So this is one we're gonna see. So it's really it's fascinating how this is shaking out because Prograis could end up taking on Josh Taylor, which is I believe is probably gonna happen. And then you got Maurice Hooker's already set to fight Ramirez. So the winners of those 2 fights can fight each other. But right now, I'm gonna say Prograis and Josh Taylor is the fight to have at super lightweight. But it's a very interesting weight class. It really is. All right, now you move up, and so it's junior welterweight or whatever you want to call it, but some people call it super lightweight. Let's move up to welterweight, the division, basically the division. If you just really want to say, there are so many fantastic fights that could be made. Many of them we've seen, but many of them we have not. Right? Depending on how you look at it, depending on how you look at it, who do you think is the best fighter between Errol Spence Jr. and Keith Thurman? That really kind of defines how you break this down. Keith Thurman has beaten better fighters. He has, but he's been inactive. And because he's been inactive, he was out for 2 years, almost 2 years before he came back and beat Josecito Lopez back in January. He did get hurt in 1 round, but he dominated the rest of the fight. Before that, it almost been 2 years since he fought. So now obviously he's about to fight Manny Pacquiao. So I don't know. How do you look at that? For me, I still have Thurman ahead of Spence. Until Thurman loses or just looks absolutely horrible, because he's fought better people than Errol Spence, I still got to give Thurman that props. So for me, I know everybody's talking about the Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. fight, but for me, the fight I need to see is Terrence Crawford, Keith Thurman. And that's assuming Keith Thurman beats Pacquiao. But if Errol Spence beats Sean Porter, now then maybe I elevate him up there to that spot. But for right now, I'm going to say it's Crawford against Keith Thurman. Now let's go to super welterweight. We're up to 154 pounds. And so I did a video a little bit earlier talking about Jaime Munguia, who is pretty much considered the best fighter at 154. Not necessarily by my estimation, but he's getting that love. From what I've seen and what literally just happened with Julian Williams defeating Jared Hurd, we also saw Tony Harrison defeat Jermell Charlo. It was a controversial decision, but it was made too close in my opinion. So if you ask me at 154, and this is assuming Munguia stays at 154 because I believe that he needs to move up. I think he's kind of beating himself up to make that weight. But if he does stay at 154, I think Jaime Munguia, Julian Williams is the best fight. It's not a fantastic fight. I'm a little bit worried about Julian Williams' sturdiness in that fight. But if he can easily outbox Jaime Munguia, he will box circles around Jaime Munguia. He will. Which is a big reason why you probably wouldn't see that fight. But I think Julian Williams boxes circles around Jaime Munguia. But I think in one of the least interesting divisions right now, among the more of the glamour region of weights, Jaime Munguia, Julian Williams is the best fight. Let's move up to middleweight, which is, of course, got some great stuff going on. Some people would say the fight, well, obviously, Canelo and Golovkin have already fought, right? So they're already out. But that wouldn't have been my choice anyway. That would not have been my choice anyway. I wrote an article about this on Forbes, and I said to me, the fight now to make it middleweight is no longer the third fight between Canelo and Golovkin. For me, the fight to make, the one you really, really want to see if you are a hardcore boxing fan, is Jermall Charlo against Demetrius Boo Boo Andrade. To me, those are the guys and I'm not dismissing Canelo. To me, Canelo wants to move up to 168 or 175. That's why he's teasing these fights against Callum Smith, which was a really tough fight, and also teasing a fight against Sergey Kovalev, which I think is a much easier fight for Canelo. I think he knocks Kovalev out, but maybe not Callum Smith. And Golovkin wants to fight Canelo pretty much wherever he goes. And Golovkin's 37 years old. He's a pretty big middleweight anyway. I think he wouldn't have any problem fighting at 168 or even 175. Now, Danny Jacobs is still in there, but he's lost to Alvarez. He's lost to Golovkin. So it is kind of what it is. Jamal Charlo was just elevated to the legitimate WBC middleweight champion. Saul the Canelo Alvarez is now a franchise champion of the governing body. So Charlo's the real world champion now. Demetrius Andrade is the WBO middleweight champion, I believe. He's undefeated. Just pretty much put on a masterclass against Machu Selecki, who is a good fighter. I think that's the fight to make it world middleweight. At middleweight, that's the one. That is the one for me. I'd love to see it. Obviously, it'd probably make $47 in pay-per-view revenue. But from a pure boxing standpoint, that's the fight to see for me. Let's go to super middleweight. Now, I've already talked about Callum Smith. There's no question in my mind. He is the best fighter at 168. There's a couple other fighters in there. You could talk about Chris Eubank Jr. I think Callum Smith destroys Chris Eubank Jr. If I'm just being honest with you, I think he destroys him. I think that's a bad fight for Chris Eubank Jr. I know Eubank has a following, but I don't think that he don't want that smoke. But he don't want that smoke. I think Callum Smith, Gilberto Ramirez is the better fight. I don't know that Gilberto Ramirez wins that fight. He's a really big super middleweight and a really good fighter, but I've seen him, especially in his last couple fights, not look fantastic. Okay, and I hold Callum Smith in high regard. Like, I don't think that Gilberto Ramirez should have to beat Jesse Hart by a majority decision. I don't. And, I know he beat him by unanimous decision the first time, majority decision in the rematch. I don't know. I think Callum gives him some problems. They're both undefeated, both under the age of 30 to me, but that's the super middleweight fight to make. But on two different networks, so you probably won't see it. Let's talk about light heavy. Light heavyweight is not a great division right now, but I think pretty easily Alexander Gvozdyk is a great fighter. Of course, unfortunately, a lot of people know him because he is the fighter who fought Adonis Stevenson and who knocked him out. And Adonis Stevenson ended up having the horrible medical issues that he had after that. But even since then, Gvozdyk has been out there to knock out Dao Ngumbu, which that fight took place just about 4 months after the fight against Stevenson. So he's a heck of a fighter. 17-0, 14 knockouts, 32 years old. But I would kind of move past that one. I would say it's Kovalev against Dmitry Bivol. Bivol might be the best fighter in the division. Bivol might be a top 10 fighter in the world, to be honest. But he has like zero appeal, commercial appeal. Doesn't have much of a personality, and he doesn't have a promoter that is really pushing him hard. He's with the Zone now, I believe it's with Matchroom. But he's a heck of a fighter. 28 years old, technically sound, can punch. First time I really got a good look at him was him knocking out Trent Broadhurst in the very first round, and I thought, I was like, okay, that was pretty impressive. But I'm like, okay, I'm not totally sold on Trent Broadhurst. But then after that, he knocks out Sullivan Barrera. Then he wins a decision over a very skilled Isaac Chilemba. Then he wins a decision over Gritty Jean Pascal, and then another decision over Joe Smith Jr., which I kind of thought maybe he should have stopped Joe Smith Jr. He's very much had him overmatched as a boxer, even though Joe Smith can really punch. But Bivol didn't stop him. 16-0, 11 knockouts, heck of a fighter, 28 years old. I think he's the guy at light heavy for Kovalev. I think he knocks out Kovalev. If you notice, and I'm saying that a lot, kind of tells you where I'm at with Kovalev at this point in his career. He's 36 years old, looks a little shop worn to me. I was leaning towards maybe Bivol Gvozdyk is the best fight, but I'm going to go Bivol Sergey Kovalev, still giving Kovalev a little bit of respect. All right, going up to cruiserweight. To me, the fight to make at cruiserweight is, now you want to talk about a division that is just not got a lot going on, right? Alexander Usyk has already moved up to heavyweight. So he it's not him, right? So many of these people that I mean, they're this, yeah. So you got an up and comer in Lawrence Okolie. He's 12-0. Then there's Maris Breedis and Murat Gassiev, and I would have to go Breedis against Gassiev as the best fight. You know, I mean, Breedis' only loss is a majority decision against Usyk. He knocked out Krzysztof Glowacki in his last fight, which was an extremely impressive victory for him. Really a big time win in his division. But then Gassiev's only loss is to Usyk as well, which just shows you Usyk cleaned out the division. He's very young, only 25 years old, 26-1 with 19 knockouts. I think it's Breedis Gassiev. I think essentially Usyk has left the division for those two guys. They both only have the one loss. The one loss came to Usyk. It's about those two guys. But good luck selling some tickets outside of Latvia and Russia for those, right? All right, so heavyweight. Yes. This is not as easy as it was before, right? Because before, the fight that everybody wanted to see, the fight to make, was Deontay Wilder against Anthony Joshua. But lo and behold, Andy Ruiz knocks out Anthony Joshua. So now, and then we've already, now according to the rules of this video I said it's got to be a fight that we haven't seen already. So we've already seen Deontay Wilder against Tyson Fury. We've seen that already. So now, if we're not talking about a fight that we've already seen, and we already kind of, the Deontay Wilder Anthony Joshua fight's not in play right now, even though I do believe it will be back in play in 2020, because I think that Joshua's going to knock out Andy Ruiz in the rematch. I know a lot of people don't believe that, but I believe it. And the crazy thing about it is I think Tyson Fury beat Deontay Wilder. So, it is what it is there. So this is a tough one. What is it? What is the fight? I'm just gonna go easy. And you might, you guys might have a problem with me taking the easy way here, but I'm gonna take the easy way. The fight to make it heavyweight is Deontay Wilder against Andy Ruiz. They got the belts, right? They got the belts, and I'm a believer that the belts should mean something. I know Deontay Wilder has to beat Luis Ortiz and probably Tyson Fury at the beginning of 2020. Ruiz has to beat Anthony Joshua probably before the end of this year. And everything could change by that, because if Joshua knocks out Ruiz or beats Ruiz, then I'm going to be back under the belief that it's back to Joshua Deontay Wilder, provided Wilder beats Ortiz and Fury. So it's an interesting division, but as of right now, we got to say Ruiz Wilder is the fight to make at heavyweight. I do appreciate you watching as always. God bless and peace.